The silence of Kepler Station's emergency care unit had become Silas's sanctuary. After years as a battlefield medic, the sterile calm of the orbiting medical research facility felt like a gift, one he'd earned through blood and sacrifice. Today, like most days, the silence wrapped around him as he reviewed patient files on his tablet, occasionally glancing at the observation monitors. Outside the reinforced windows, the gaseous clouds of the Matari system swirled in perpetual motion, their amber hues casting a warm glow throughout the otherwise clinical space. Major Silas Matthews had been stationed at Kepler for 18 months now. The transition from military trauma surgeon to clinical researcher hadn't been seamless, but he'd adapted. His colleagues respected his precision, his steady hands, and his unflappable demeanor, remnants of a discipline forged under fire. Beneath that composed exterior, however, remnants of tension lurked, muscles still conditioned to respond to the sudden crack of gunfire or the urgent cry of medic. Kepler Station represented humanity's pinnacle of biomedical achievement, a joint military-civilian endeavor orbiting the outer reaches of settled space. Here, researchers pursued cures for interstellar ailments, developed trauma protocols for zero-gravity environments, and pushed the boundaries of human medical knowledge. The station's military character was unmistakable despite its humanitarian mission. Security checkpoints at every junction, armed personnel alongside scientists, and protocols that reminded Silas daily that knowledge was power, especially on the frontier. He checked the time, 15:43 Standard. Another quiet day. Perhaps he would finally complete his research on tissue regeneration in low-gravity environments. His hands moved deftly across the tablet, making notes on cellular mitosis rates when the alarm shattered his concentration. Security breach. Section 7. All personnel initiate lockdown procedures. The AI's voice was calm, almost inappropriately so, given the urgency of the message. Silas's body reacted before his mind fully processed the information, muscles tensing, breath steadying, pupils dilating as adrenaline flooded his system. Old instincts, never truly forgotten. The emergency doors began their automatic sealing sequence with a hydraulic hiss. Through the narrowing gap, Silas caught a flash of movement, a figure stumbling toward the medical bay, clutching their abdomen. Training overrode protocol. He jammed his tablet between the doors, preventing them from sealing completely, and pulled them apart with a strength born of necessity. The figure collapsed through the opening, landing hard on the polished floor. Silas kicked the tablet away, allowing the doors to slam shut behind the intruder, sealing them both inside the medical bay. What, or rather who, lay before him was unlike any patient he'd treated before. Humanoid, yes, but clearly not human. The body was slender, almost delicate in proportion, with skin that appeared nearly translucent under the medical bay's harsh lighting. Through that semi-transparency, a network of luminescent golden veins pulsed with diminishing strength. The face, though alien in its angular structure, conveyed a universal expression: pain. Most striking were the eyes, large, iridescent, and fixed on Silas with a recognition that sent ice through his veins. He had never seen this being before, yet somehow, those eyes knew him. Blood seeped between the creature's fingers where they pressed against a wound in their abdomen. The blood, a strange golden amber color that seemed to catch and refract light. The being's breathing came in ragged gasps, each one weaker than the last. Medical training kicked in. Silas moved toward the emergency cabinet, but froze when the alien spoke, voice rasping in heavily accented but understandable English. Ironic. Coming to kill you. Dying at your feet instead. Silas turned slowly, understanding washing over him like ice water. This wasn't just any intruder. This was an assassin, his assassin, and now, his patient. For a heartbeat that seemed to stretch into eternity, Silas stood motionless, The Hippocratic oath warring with self-preservation. The being on the floor, his would-be killer, was bleeding out rapidly. Those strange, knowing eyes began to dim. Decision made. Silas moved with practiced efficiency. "I don't know what you are, or why you're here to kill me," he said, grabbing a medical scanner. "But today, I'm just your doctor." He knelt beside the assassin, running the scanner over the wound. The device beeped in confusion, struggling to categorize the alien physiology. "What's your name?" he asked, applying pressure to staunch the bleeding. "Sala," the assassin whispered, confusion evident in those large eyes. "Why help? Enemy." "Because right now, you're not my enemy," Silas replied, activating the surgical table. "You're my patient." With strength, honed through years of carrying wounded soldiers, Silas lifted Sala onto the table. The scanner continued to flash warning signals. Unknown physiology. Incompatible treatment protocols. Useless. He would have to rely on observation and instinct. The wound appeared to be a projectile entry point, likely from station security. The golden blood pulsed from the opening with each of Sala's weakening heartbeats. Through the translucent skin, Silas could see internal damage. Organs he couldn't identify, damaged in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. "Mara," he called to the station's AI. "I need information on xenophysiology, specifically any species with translucent epidermis and golden circulatory fluid." "Searching," the AI responded. "Warning, security breach protocols are in effect. Information access is restricted." Silas cursed under his breath. He'd have to work blind. "Sala," he said firmly, meeting those alien eyes. "I need to know. What's your species' medical emergency protocol for traumatic abdominal wounds?" Sala's laugh turned into a cough, golden droplets spattering from pale lips. "We don't get wounded. We succeed. Or die." "Great. A species that either didn't value medical intervention or had so few vulnerabilities they'd never develop trauma care." The golden network beneath Sala's skin was dimming, the pulses becoming irregular. "Your circulatory system," Silas said, grabbing surgical tools. "These golden vessels, they're more than blood vessels, aren't they? They conduct energy of some kind." Sala's eyes widened slightly. "Neural vascular network, carries, life force, thought, emotion, neural vascular, a combination of nervous and circulatory systems." Silas's mind raced through the implications. If the golden fluid carried both nutrients and neural impulses, the blood loss wasn't just causing physical weakness. It was literally draining Sala's consciousness. Working on instinct, Silas connected cardiac stimulator pads to Sala's chest, adjusting the electrical output to its lowest setting. "This might hurt," he warned, "but I need to see how your system responds to electrical stimulation." He activated the device. Sala's body arched slightly, and the golden network flared momentarily brighter before dimming again. Interesting. The neural vascular system responded to electrical stimulation, similar to human cardiac tissue. "Again," Sala whispered, surprising Silas. "It helps." Silas adjusted the settings and administered another controlled shock. This time, the golden network maintained its increased luminosity for several seconds longer. The wound continued to seep, but the flow had decreased slightly. "Your system conducts and amplifies electrical energy," Silas murmured, more to himself than to Sala. "The neural vascular fluid must act as both conductor and storage medium." He reached for a laser cauterizer, normally used for sealing human blood vessels. "I'm going to try sealing the wound edges. If your tissues respond to heat the way ours do, this might help contain the bleeding while I figure out how to repair the deeper damage." As he worked, Silas maintained a steady dialogue, partly to keep Sala conscious and partly to process his own thoughts. "You said you came to kill me. Mind telling me why while I'm saving your life? Sala's gaze, though clouded with pain, remained fixed on Silas. You discovered something. Something that threatens the Empire. Empire. Silas continued the delicate process of sealing the wound edges, encouraged as the golden fluid's flow diminished further. What empire? Vorak Empire, Sala replied, voice marginally stronger as the neural vascular system stabilized. Your research, neural plague cure, would change power balance. Silas's hands stilled momentarily. The neural plague, a devastating illness that had emerged in the outer colonies 3 years ago. His research team had recently made a breakthrough, developing a treatment protocol that showed promising results in preliminary trials. But how could treating a disease threaten an alien empire he'd never even heard of? The neural plague affects your people too, Silas realized aloud. And someone doesn't want it cured. Sala's silence was confirmation enough. Silas returned to his work, mind racing with implications. If this Vorak Empire was willing to assassinate researchers to prevent a cure from being developed, the disease must serve some strategic purpose. Biological warfare, perhaps? Or maybe a natural disease that happened to affect humans and Voraks differently, creating an advantage they didn't want to lose. The station's emergency lights suddenly switched to red, bathing the medical bay in crimson. Intruder alert, Mara announced. Security forces engaging in Section 8. All personnel remain in lockdown. Section 8, adjacent to the medical bay. More intruders. Your friends? Silas asked, working faster now. Not friends, Sala replied, tension evident in the alien's voice. Korth, Commander. He will kill us both. For what? Your failure to assassinate me, or my success in keeping you alive? Both, Sala whispered. Failure is death. Knowledge is control. Silas made a decision. He couldn't fight off armed intruders, but he knew Kepler Station better than they did. Can you move? We need to get out of here. Why? Help me escape, Sala asked, confusion evident. Because if what you're saying is true, my research could save countless lives, both human and Vorak. Silas replied, disconnecting monitoring equipment. And because I didn't spend the last 20 minutes saving your life, just to watch you die anyway. He helped Sala to a sitting position, noting with professional satisfaction that the wound had stopped actively bleeding. The neural vascular network pulsed with more regular rhythm, though still far from what he guessed was normal strength. Maintenance access, Silas said, moving to a seemingly blank wall panel and pressing his palm against it. The panel slid aside, revealing a narrow service corridor. Every medical research facility I've ever worked in has these, ways for technicians to access systems without disturbing patients. Security probably doesn't know about them. He supported Sala's weight as they entered the cramped passage. The panel slid closed behind them, just as the sound of the main doors being forced open echoed through the medical bay. Where going? Sala asked, each step clearly painful but determined. Research lab, Silas replied. If your Commander Korvith wants my research badly enough to send assassins, I'm not going to make it easy for him to find, and I need to understand why it's so threatening to your people. They navigated the narrow maintenance corridors, the station's emergency lighting casting long shadows ahead of them. Silas felt Sala's body temperature fluctuating against him, another physiological difference he noted with clinical detachment, despite their dire circumstances. The neural plague, Silas said as they moved. It affects your neural vascular system differently than our nervous system, doesn't it? Sala nodded weakly. For humans, pain, loss of function, eventual death. For Vorak, loss of emotional regulation first. We become dangerous, violent, then death. So it's a different progression, but fatal to both species, Silas mused. And my treatment protocol would save both, Sala finished. Empire doctrine, Humans are lesser beings. Doctrine requires maintaining advantage. So better that both species suffer than admit humans could help Vorax. Silas concluded grimly. Politics over people. Some things are universal. It seems. They reached a junction in the maintenance corridor. Silas oriented himself, recalling the station's layout. Research lab is one level down. There's an access ladder ahead. The descent was slow and painful, Sala's strength clearly fading despite the emergency treatment. When they finally reached the research lab's maintenance entrance, Silas had to practically carry the assassin. The lab was dark, running on emergency power only. Silas helped Sala onto an examination table before securing the doors and activating the backup systems. Screens flickered to life, displaying his research data. Mara, he called. Emergency protocol override. Authorization Matthews, Silas. Major, Medical Division. Access research files on neural plague treatment. Override accepted, the AI responded. Warning. Station security has been compromised. Multiple unauthorized personnel detected. Emergency evacuation advisable. Noted, Silas replied, fingers flying across the keyboard. Download all neural plague research data to portable drive and erase primary servers. As the system processed his commands, he turned his attention back to Sala. The assassin was watching him with an expression that might have been respect, though Silas found alien facial expressions difficult to interpret. Why risk everything? Sala asked. Could have let me die. Could surrender research. Silas checked Sala's wound, noting with satisfaction that the emergency treatment was holding. I'm a doctor before I'm a soldier. Saving lives is what I do, even the lives of those who might take mine. He paused, meeting those strange iridescent eyes. As for the research, it's not mine to surrender. It belongs to everyone who might benefit from it. A crash from beyond the lab doors interrupted them. They're coming, Sala warned, attempting to rise despite obvious pain. Stay down, Silas ordered, retrieving the data drive and slipping it into his pocket. You'll tear open that wound. The doors to the lab burst inward with a screech of protesting metal. Through the opening stepped a figure that could only be the Korth that Sala had mentioned, taller, broader, and emanating an authority that transcended species barriers. Behind him, 4 armed Vorax moved with military precision, securing the room with practiced efficiency. Unlike Sala's almost delicate features, Korth's face was marked with what appeared to be deliberate scarification, golden lines tracing patterns across features set in cold determination. His neural vascular network pulsed strongly beneath semi-transparent skin, the golden light projecting an aura of power. Major Silas Matthews, Korth stated, his English perfect, though inflected with an accent that seemed to emphasize consonants unnaturally. Your reputation for skill is well-deserved. Few could have saved a Vorak from such injuries. His gaze shifted to Sala. Though perhaps it would have been kinder to let this failure die with honor. Silas positioned himself between Korth and Sala, hands raised to show he was unarmed. Commander Korth, I presume. I'd say it's a pleasure, but we both know that would be a lie. Korth's expression remained impassive. The data, Major. Your research on the neural plague. Where is it? Why do you want it? Silas countered. To destroy it? To ensure both our species continue to suffer and die from a treatable disease? To control its distribution, Korth replied smoothly. To ensure the natural order remains unchallenged. Natural order? Silas couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. There's nothing natural about allowing people to die when they could be saved. Korth stepped closer, his height forcing Silas to look up to maintain eye contact. The Vorak Empire has maintained stability across 12 star systems for 8 centuries. We do so by adhering to fundamental truths, chief among them, that lesser species must not be allowed to rise beyond their station. Your cure would upset that balance. My cure would save lives. Vorak lives. Silas emphasized. Is your natural order worth the suffering of your own people? Something flickered across Korvth's face. So brief Silas almost missed it. Doubt? Concern? It was gone before he could identify it. The data, Korvth repeated, gesturing to one of his soldiers, who raised a weapon. Or we will take it from your corpse. Silas's mind raced. He couldn't fight his way past 5 armed Voraks, and he had no illusions about their willingness to kill. But perhaps there was another way. You're making a mistake, Silas said, keeping his voice level. My treatment protocol isn't just a cure. It's a methodology that could revolutionize how your people approach medicine entirely. Korvth's expression didn't change, but he hadn't given the order to fire. Silas pressed his advantage. You mentioned stability across 12 star systems, he continued. How stable will that empire be when the neural plague continues to spread? My research indicates the disease is evolving, becoming more virulent, more resistant to conventional treatments. Our scientists are developing our own solutions, Korvth countered, though something in his tone suggested uncertainty. Silas shook his head. Not fast enough. The neural vascular system's complexity makes it particularly vulnerable to the plague's progression. Your people will suffer more severely and die more quickly than humans. He gestured to Sala. I saved one of your kind today with improvised treatments, based on an incomplete understanding of your physiology. Imagine what could be accomplished through collaboration rather than conflict. Korvth's golden network pulsed more rapidly, visible evidence of emotional or cognitive activity. After a moment of apparent consideration, he spoke. Demonstrate. What? Silas asked, caught off guard. Demonstrate your treatment, Korvth clarified. If it is as revolutionary as you claim, prove it. Silas hesitated. His treatment protocol was designed for human patients and had only reached preliminary trials. Adapting it for Vorak physiology had been a theoretical exercise until Sala had quite literally fallen at his feet. I would need a subject, Silas said cautiously. Korvth's response shocked even his own soldiers. You have one. Me. Commander, one of the Voraks protested. The risk. Korvth silenced them with a gesture. A leader who fears to test what he asks his soldiers to endure is no leader at all. He turned back to Silas. I carry the early-stage neural plague. Most Vorak High Command do. It is considered a rite of passage to endure its initial symptoms without complaint. Treat me, Major Matthews. Show me this miracle that threatens our empire. Silas glanced at Sala, who appeared as surprised as he felt. This was either an incredible opportunity or an elaborate trap. I'll need my equipment, Silas said, moving slowly toward the lab's diagnostic array. And I should warn you, this treatment was developed for humans. Adapting it to your physiology will involve some educated guesswork. Proceed, Korvth commanded, removing his armored outer garment to reveal the neural vascular network beneath his translucent skin. Even to Silas's untrained eye, certain portions of the network appeared dimmer, the golden flow sluggish and irregular, signs of the neural plague's early progression. As Silas prepared the treatment materials, he kept up a running commentary, partly to ease his own tension, and partly to educate. The neural plague attacks connection points in human nervous systems, synapses, causing cascading failures. In your neural vascular system, it appears to target junctions where the golden fluid pools and redistributes. He prepared a solution that had shown success in human trials, modifying the composition based on what he'd observed of Sala's physiology. The treatment involves 2 components: a synthetic neurotransmitter that bridges damaged connections, and a targeted electrical stimulation that teaches the system to reroute around damaged sections. Korvth watched with evident interest as Silas loaded the modified solution into an injector. Why would humans develop such a treatment? The complexity suggests significant resources dedicated to its creation. The plague doesn't discriminate, Silas replied. checking the injector's calibration. It's affected our outer colonies hardest, places where resources are already stretched thin. Every death weakens those colonies further. He met Corvith's gaze directly. Suffering isn't a competition. Commander, neither is survival. Corvith extended his arm, offering access to a major neurovascular channel. Your philosophy is interesting, if naive. Proceed. Silas administered the injection, watching carefully as the solution entered Corvith's golden network. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, the network around the injection site pulsed brighter, the illumination spreading outward like ripples in water. Neural vascular response positive, Silas noted, preparing the electrical stimulator. Now for the second phase. This will be uncomfortable. He applied the stimulator to specific points along Corvith's neural vascular pathways, targeting the areas where the golden flow appeared most compromised. Each application caused Corvith to tense, though the commander made no sound of discomfort. As the treatment progressed, the previously dimmed sections of Corvith's neural vascular network gradually brightened. The irregular patterns of flow smoothed into more consistent rhythms. The change was visible, undeniable. Silas stepped back, allowing Corvith to examine his own arm, where the golden network now pulsed with renewed vitality. The treatment isn't permanent yet, Silas cautioned. It would require several sessions to fully reverse the damage. But the improvement should be noticeable immediately, both physically and emotionally. Corvith flexed his hand, an expression of something like wonder briefly crossing his features. The clarity. The discord in my thoughts has diminished. He looked up at Silas. You've done in minutes what our scientists have failed to accomplish in years. Because I approach the problem differently, Silas explained. Human neurology and Vorak neural vascular systems evolved independently, but serve similar functions. By recognizing the parallels, rather than focusing on the differences, I found a solution that works for both. Corvith turned to his soldiers, then to Sala, who watched the proceedings with evident astonishment. For a long moment, the commander was silent, seemingly engaged in internal deliberation. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. The Vorak Empire has endured because it adapts, he said finally. Those who cannot adapt perish. This is the true natural order. He faced Silas directly. Your research threatens Vorak supremacy only if we refuse to acknowledge its value. The true path to continued dominance lies in embracing superior methods, regardless of their origin. One of Corvith's soldiers stepped forward. Commander, Imperial doctrine clearly states. Imperial doctrine was written by those who never encountered a human who could heal rather than harm. Corvith interrupted. Would you have me destroy knowledge that could save countless Vorak lives merely to preserve our pride? The soldier retreated, chastened. Corvith turned back to Silas. The station has been compromised. More of my kind will come, and not all will share my enlightenment. Your research must be preserved and expanded. Silas nodded, understanding the unspoken offer. I've downloaded the data, but I'll need more than that to continue the work. Equipment, subjects for clinical trials. Earth, Sala spoke up, having remained silent throughout the demonstration. We must take this to Earth authorities. Combined knowledge, combined effort. Corvith considered this, the golden network beneath his skin pulsing in patterns that Silas was beginning to recognize as indicators of intense thought. A bold proposition. The Empire has avoided official contact with Earth governance, preferring to operate from the shadows. Those shadows have cost lives on both sides, Silas argued. Imagine what could be accomplished through open cooperation instead of covert conflict. After another moment of consideration, Corvith nodded decisively. Prepare what you need. Major Matthews. You have 10 minutes before this station is overrun. There is an escape module in Docking Bay 3 that can reach Earth. Sala will accompany you. And you? Silas asked, already moving to gather essential research materials. I will provide. Distraction, Korvth replied, with what might have been the Vorak equivalent of a smile, a brief illumination of the neural vascular pathways near his face. And begin the difficult task of changing 8 centuries of imperial doctrine. As Silas packed the portable research equipment and medical supplies, Sala approached him, moving with greater ease than before. You saved my life, then changed my commander's mind. Impressive for a lesser species. Silas couldn't help but smile at the backhanded compliment. Maybe different doesn't have to mean lesser, for either of us. With the necessary equipment secured, they made their way through the maintenance corridors toward Docking Bay 3. Behind them, the sounds of combat erupted, Korvth's distraction apparently in full swing. The escape module was small, designed for emergency evacuation rather than comfort. As they secured themselves in the cramped cockpit, Sala initiated the launch sequence with practiced efficiency. You've flown one of these before, Silas observed, as the module detached from Kepler Station. Similar design, Sala confirmed, hands moving across the controls. Stealing technology is easier than developing it. Another imperial doctrine that may need revision. As Kepler Station receded behind them, its silhouette occasionally illuminated by weapons fire, Silas felt a strange mixture of loss and anticipation. The station had been his home, his sanctuary after the battlefield. Now he was heading toward an uncertain future, accompanied by someone who had been sent to kill him mere hours ago. Earth authorities will be suspicious, Sala noted as the module accelerated toward the jump point that would begin their journey to the Sol system. First official Vorak contact, bringing news of Empire and Plague. They'll be more than suspicious, Silas agreed. But the research data will speak for itself, and having a Vorak present will make denial impossible. For the first time, Sala's expression softened into something Silas might have interpreted as amusement. Not just any Vorak, failed assassin. Strange credentials for ambassador. Failed assassin. Successful patient, Silas corrected. And living proof that cooperation is possible, even between would-be enemies. The journey to Earth would take 3 days in the small module. During that time, Silas found himself learning more about Vorak physiology, culture, and history than any human before him. Sala, initially reserved, gradually became more forthcoming, explaining the intricacies of the neural vascular system, the structure of the Vorak Empire, and the complex honor codes that govern their society. In turn, Silas shared insights about human medicine, politics, and the challenges of interstellar colonization. Their conversations ranged from technical exchanges about biological compatibility to philosophical debates about the nature of progress and cooperation. Your empire values stability, Silas noted during one such discussion. Humans tend to value innovation, sometimes at the expense of stability. Balance needed, Sala replied. The patterns of the neural vascular network, now familiar enough to Silas that he could recognize thoughtfulness in their pulsing rhythm. Empire provides order, but resists change. Humans embrace change, but create chaos. Maybe that's why the neural plague treatment worked, Silas suggested. It combined elements of both approaches, structured methodology with innovative application. As they spoke, Silas noticed subtle changes in Sala's behavior, increased curiosity, decreased formality, and occasional expressions that seemed almost human in their emotional transparency. Whether these changes resulted from the near-death experience, exposure to human interaction, or simply the removal from imperial doctrine was unclear, but the transformation was undeniable. On the final day of their journey, as Earth grew from a bright point of light to a blue-white sphere on their view screen, Sala posed a question that caught Silas off guard. Why medicine, Why heal instead of harm, when your species so often chooses the latter? Silas considered this, aware that his answer might shape Sala's perception of humanity as a whole. "I've seen enough harm to know it's the easy path," he finally replied. "Destruction requires less skill, less understanding, less empathy than creation or healing. Anyone can break things. It takes wisdom to build or repair them." He glanced at the golden neural vascular network visible beneath Sala's skin, now pulsing with healthy rhythm. "Besides, there's something profound about helping another being continue their story rather than ending it, even when that being was sent to end yours." Sala's network brightened in what Silas had come to recognize as emotional response. Vorak doctrine teaches that showing mercy is weakness, that vulnerability must be exploited, never protected. The assassin's large eyes met Silas's. "Yet, you protected me at my most vulnerable. This challenges everything." "Good," Silas said simply. "Some things should be challenged." Their entry into Earth's atmosphere was tracked by multiple defense systems. By the time they landed in a remote desert location, chosen to minimize potential contamination or threat, a substantial military and scientific contingent had assembled to meet them. As the module's hatch opened, Silas stepped out first, hands raised to show he carried no weapons. "Major Silas Matthews, Kepler Station Medical Research Division," he called out to the assembled forces. "I am accompanied by Sala of the Vorak. We come with critical medical research and an opportunity for peaceful contact." The next 72 hours were a blur of debriefings, medical examinations, and high-level consultations. Silas presented his research on the neural plague treatment, explaining both its potential and the circumstances that had brought him and Sala to Earth. For her part, Sala provided unprecedented insights into Vorak biology, society, and the structure of their interstellar empire. Initially held in isolation, they were gradually granted more freedom as the authenticity of their information was verified and their intentions assessed as non-threatening. Silas's military record and research credentials helped establish credibility, while Sala's willingness to submit to medical examination demonstrated good faith. On the fourth day, they were informed that a Vorak diplomatic vessel had entered the solar system, requesting formal communication with Earth authorities. Commander Korf had apparently succeeded in his difficult task more rapidly than anticipated. "It's happening," Silas remarked, as he and Sala stood at the window of the facility where they were being housed, watching the desert sunset paint the sky in shades of gold that reminded him of the Vorak neural vascular network. "The beginning of official human-Vorak relations. Because you chose to heal instead of harm," Sala observed quietly. One decision, rippling outward. Silas glanced at his companion, noting how the fading sunlight played across those alien features that had somehow become familiar, even welcome. "We both made choices that day. You could have completed your mission when I was treating you. I was vulnerable, focused on the wound rather than the assassin." Sala's neural vascular network pulsed with an emotion Silas couldn't quite identify. By then, curious, wanted to understand why enemy would save me. Worth more than completing mission. Curiosity, Silas smiled. Perhaps that's what our species truly have in common. The desire to understand, to learn, to grow beyond what we've been told is possible. As darkness fell, the stars emerged one by one above the desert landscape. Among them, invisible to the naked eye, but present nonetheless, Vorak and human vessels prepared for a historic meeting that would forever change both civilizations. Below, standing side by side, a human doctor and Vorak assassin-turned-ambassador watched the same stars, their unlikely alliance a microcosm of the greater cooperation to come. "The neural plague treatment will be just the beginning," Silas said softly. "Imagine what else we might accomplish together." Sala's golden network brightened in the darkness, illuminating those large, expressive eyes. First, learn to trust, then, learn to build, together. In the cool desert night, beneath a canopy of stars that had witnessed countless conflicts and too few reconciliations, a human and a Vorak stood not as enemies, not merely as allies of convenience, but as something neither had imagined possible. Friends. Perhaps even the foundation of something more. The golden light of Sala's neural vascular network pulsed in harmony with Silas's steadfast heart. Two different systems, finding unexpected synchrony. Proof that healing was possible, even across the vast distances between stars and species. The future stretched before them, unwritten and suddenly full of possibilities that neither empire nor isolation could have produced alone. It had begun with a doctor's choice to save a life, rather than take it, with an assassin's decision to value understanding over mission, with a commander's willingness to question doctrine in the face of undeniable evidence. Small choices, rippling outward, wounds healing, barriers falling, new connections forming. Like stars in the darkness, hope illuminated the path forward.